Limon. She's present in court with her attorney and the people are represented. We have Mr. Hearn on the stand, still subject to redirect by Mr. Smith. All 12 plus 4 in the box are good. Afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Smith, if you'd like to continue, sir.
Mr. Hearn, going back to People 68, you said prior to lunch that you hadn't come up with a comprehensive list. Now that you have the lunch to kind of think about it, that was the question we left off on. What moved you from your vision, as shown in People 68, which was divorce and waiting for Rob to leave, to the ultimate plan with Sabrina to kill her husband?
There were a number of things that she told me as far as reasons why it would be best that Robert was dead, as opposed to simply them going about getting a divorce and that being the beginning of our marriage and future together. There was many reasons she presented, and some of those I've mentioned, but specifically ones that come to mind are, she said even for Rob's sake, he would rather be dead than divorced, she said. She said that to lose her would emotionally destroy him, would kill him, she said. And that was something that she didn't want to do to him, in the emotional, figurative sense, that is. She also said that for his own sake, losing her or having to deal with dual custody issues with the kids, she thought that for sure he would become violent, would deal violently with us because of that. In the case of a divorce, that is. But she also mentioned other things as far as with her kids, that they would be better off not having to go through the rigors of a dual custody, two-home upbringing. But I would say probably mostly for her own sake. She made it very clear that if she was to divorce Rob, her family and friends who liked Rob would definitely side with Rob, and that she would be seen as the bad guy in the situation. She argued that essentially by saying that Rob had pulled the wool over their eyes and displayed this perfect relationship with her, and as if they have this perfect marriage, while confessing to me, obviously, on the side that things were far less than perfect. Things were insufferable for her, in just increasingly so. So a main part of her rhetoric was that Rob was unwilling to focus on their marriage. Rob was unwilling to address issues in their marriage. Rob only cared about this image-based lifestyle and was perpetrating a very objectifying sort of relationship on her. As I mentioned, or as is written down in those bullet points, a number of things that she felt sort of used. And these were not things that I was prompting her or making her feel I was not giving her these ideas about her relationship. These were things that I had asked her. I had asked how she felt. I had asked how her relationship with Rob made her feel in certain ways, and these were some of the answers and responses she had given me. So over time, chronic exposure to these sort of reasons that essentially she wanted Rob dead, not just him out of the picture or gone in the form of a divorce.
Now, you were asked a question as to who was the mastermind of the plot, and you said at that time that there was more of an explanation that went with that. Do you recall that? I believe it was on Friday.
Oh, this was in Mr. Terry's questioning?
Yes.
It would probably be along the lines of some of the things I've just been iterating. Mastermind is a pretty singular term, obviously, and in this case, I know that for sure Sabrina and I both coordinated, or I guess you could say conspired, to kill her husband. I don't remember. There was a couple other things at that time that I had been thinking of, and I apologize, Mr. Smith. I don't recall all that I was thinking of at that time, but just not to look at the relationship or the plotting of the killing of her husband through too narrow of a lens. As I know, it's difficult to sum up the entirety in just a short, abbreviated courtroom experience, but I guess to say on the record that I was not the mastermind as in a singular sense.
So as you stated, mastermind is the combination of you and Sabrina Limon.
Certainly.
Now, did Miss Limon advise you of Robert's schedule of when he worked in Tehachapi? Just over the course of the months that we've been talking about.
It was very usual for her to tell me whenever he had upcoming Tehachapi shifts, and even potential upcoming Tehachapi shifts, meaning if he had heard that people were going to be away and there might be open spots coming up. So yes, I was pretty familiar with his schedule and also with her schedule. As I mentioned, sometimes she would call in to work sick or something so she could come over and be with me.
You talked about the lengths that you went to hide the physical identity, not only of yourself, but of your motorcycle. What steps was Sabrina to take to hide your identity from law enforcement, or what had you agreed upon?
Primarily, we discussed at a number of points that ideally she would not have to mention me at all. If there was no suspicion brought up by anyone of our relationship, hopefully if they didn't address her specifically about me, that she wasn't going to mention me at all. In the case that they did mention me, it was thought that she could potentially bring up the reasoning that we were simply trying to hide an affair and not a plot to kill her husband. And so I'm sure, as you've seen, much of some of our sort of conversation in the wiretaps reflects that, and some of the sort of that's essentially the key point of her involvement, was just not to mention me.
You mentioned in some of the questioning of Mr. Terry that she actually told you that she had told, or basically lied to law enforcement about having an affair with you immediately following the murder of Robert Limon. Is that correct?
Yes, she had told me that.
What did she tell you?
Numerous times, and I think we may have heard it in the wiretaps, she had mentioned that she was not involved with a boyfriend or had ever been in any sort of extramarital affair, and that was exactly in keeping with our plan, sir.
Now, the letter that was shown to you, Defense Exhibit, I believe, S, was that written before or after you were aware that Sabrina Limon had lied to law enforcement about the existence of your affair?
Which letter, sir?
I believe Defense S.
This letter was written after I knew that she had lied to law enforcement.
Some of the lines in here talks about Robert Limon, correct?
Yes.
You write in there, what you've read paints a clear picture of the precious man who opened my eyes to life and God. As understood by you and Sabrina, based on your long-standing affair, was that a true statement?
No, sir.
You talk about in a lesson that his life leaves to us, based on your long-standing affair with Miss Limon and what you had talked to her about. Was that a true statement?
No, sir. As with most of that letter.
Now, when you killed Robert Limon, what was your, I guess, opinion of him?
It was a very negative one, informed exclusively by Sabrina. While I would also add that I didn't try to, or I should say, I tried to kind of distance myself from a much thought directly of him, because I guess in my twisted thinking at that time, it was almost inevitable that he needed to be dead.
In Defense S, you write, Sabrina, I feel like Robert was a man that I wish to God that I knew better. Was that a true statement?
I'll tell you now, the statement is true. The setting makes it false because it's, as I testified previously, it's a letter designed as a prop, essentially, designed that it could be read by her family or by law enforcement, and the setting of that letter was that I delivered it with some sympathy gifts and flowers and gestures and things at a time that she had arranged for me to meet her family, because her family was there that evening.
Do you know the time frame of when that meeting was to take place? September, October, November 2014?
It would have been in those months. I don't recall right now immediately.
Your Honor, if I may approach, I had an item marked.
Yes.
Equal 77, mark next to order.
If I may approach the witness.
Terry, have you seen it?
Not yet. Sorry. Mr. Hearn, showing you what has been marked equals 77. If you could review that, please.
Yes, sir.
Starting with the first text message, what date was that text message received?
This was on 10/5 of 2014.
Okay. Did you receive that text message?
I did.
From whom?
Sabrina.
What is the text of that text message?
It says, "Baby, period. You are my partner in this life. to live for God, period. I'm so ready to live life fully with you, period. In all caps, I will wait on God's time and trust in his plan, period. But I'm ready for us, and the ready for us is in all caps. I need you, Jonathan, with 3 exclamation points.
What's the context to trust in his plan?
Do you know what is meant by that, Mr. Smith?
I'll say not directly, Your Honor.
Thank you.
What's the next text message and date?
Received by me on 10/18 of 2014, and the text says, I'm in love with you, with 4 exclamation points. Deeply, period. A love that I've never felt before, exclamation point.
And who sent you that text message?
Sabrina.
Now, the statement, a love that I have never felt before, was that in line with the conversations that you regularly had with Sabrina Limon as to how she felt about you?
She told me things along those lines very frequently, yes, sir.
There's no mention of Robert Limon in that text, is there?
In that text, there's no mention of Robert.
The next text message?
Received on 11/1 of 2014. Says, what are your plans? Question mark. What do you want to do today? Question mark. Robbie has a soccer game this morning at 9, period. Then today is a community cleanup day, and I have 3 big bags of papers to take over to the shred fest, quote unquote. Then I was going to see my parents at their little gathering that they put together at the North Lake here in Silver Lakes, period. I won't stay long, period. I won't even go if the weather is nasty, period. So, ... How's the love of my life this morning? Question mark.
Now, the statement, how is the love of my life? Again, was that in keeping with your conversations with Miss Limon throughout this affair?
In the months that followed the killing of her husband, those sort of comments did noticeably decrease compared to in the time prior to his death. However, certainly it was in keeping with her attitude and the things that she would tell me. Certainly there was greater frequency of those kinds of things prior to the killing.
And the last text message containing people 77?
Received 11/2 of 2014. It reads, you really are such an amazing man of many God-given gifts and talents, period. I feel overwhelmed by your know-how, comma, but I feel privileged to be able to be a part of you, comma, and blessed to have your love in many wonderful ways that I do, period. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for giving me you. And the you is in all caps, period. I cherish all of what I have with you, Jonathan, exclamation point.
Your Honor, I would request people 77 be moved into evidence at this time.
Any objection, Mr. Chair? Submitted.
Now, the arsenic trioxide that you purchased, how did you have it delivered?
It was to come to a commercial address, which was the art facility that my grandparents owned. However, I don't recall. I believe I was at work the day that it arrived, and I do remember picking up a slip for it. I'm not sure the proper term for it, but a slip that then I went to the post office and redeemed it.
So in the purchase of the arsenic trioxide, you used a false name, correct?
I did.
But you did not use a false address, did you?
That's correct.
Also, during the pendency of the wiretaps, a lot of times you were heard talking about a red Titan or another individual you saw in the area. Were you concerned you were being followed during the wiretaps?
I know I mentioned to Sabrina a few other times other than what I heard here in the wiretaps. There were two other times that I mentioned to her, but there was also 2 or 3 other times beside the time I saw the red Titan. There were 2 or 3 other times that I did seem to notice indicators of being followed. So certainly it was a concern, and I spoke with Sabrina about it, and it was just one more thing at the back of my mind that was kind of plaguing me at the time.
Did that play into your decision at all not to discard all of the items that you still retained?
That was an aspect of it. That was my intention, is if there was an investigation that was pointed at me, it would be easier to just hide these things away than dispose of them at some much later date. Figuring that if I truly was being followed, I wouldn't have much privacy in what I was discarding.
In your responses to Mr. Terry, you speak a lot about physically present, that Sabrina was not physically present with you during a lot of your actions during this case. Did you feel like she was present with you via phone in a lot of the actions that you did?
That's certainly the impression I'm trying to convey. And obviously, you know me, Mr. Smith. I'm not one to sensationalize much, and so I'm not going to say she was with me in spirit, or I'm not going to say that she was somehow prevailing over my better judgment through her constant barrage of affection. But certainly, I mean, the morning I killed her husband, I had her in my ear on hands-free while I was going about making preparations, just like for thousands of hours worth of conversation over the previous years. We had thoroughly enjoyed each other's company, or at least I had hers.
Nothing further.
establish that you lied, or at least misled your entire family with regards to your faith. Would that be accurate?
In essence.
Well, you were able to at least, because you've said that you only mouthed the words, you didn't really believe them, right?
That was sort of my perspective looking back on it. Yes, sir.
Okay. And likewise, you were able to deceive your parents and your sister with regards to your beliefs for a number of years. Would that be accurate?
You're speaking with respect to religion and abstaining from affairs and all that?
Well, I haven't gotten to that yet. I was just talking about your faith, your beliefs.
Well, my beliefs were demonstrated by my actions, and
Did you hide your true lack of conviction of your faith from your family for a number of years?
certainly in many respects.
Okay. And the time that your sister says when you were told with her and you were told by Sabrina's boss that Rob had been killed, you acted as if you were shocked and dismayed. Would that be accurate?
That would be accurate.
To the point where you convinced your sister that it was an honest reaction. Would that be accurate?
There were a lot of organic, pent-up emotions that came out at that time, so it was a genuine reaction, but it was misplaced in the fact that I already knew about it.
Okay, but you deceived your sister into believing it was that you didn't know about it. Would that be accurate?
I believe so.
Okay. So it'd be fair to say that you're pretty good at putting on a false front. Would you not agree?
I've certainly lied a lot, if that's what you're asking.
Yes, sir. That's part of what I'm asking. Yes. So you say this was after Sabrina had told you that she had not told the police that she was involved with you. Is that right? You wrote this. Is that correct?
I believe I just said that. Yes, sir.
Yes. When I asked you when you wrote this, you didn't even remember. Is that right?
Mr. Cherry, which exhibit is that?
Talking about Defense Exhibit S, Your Honor.
Thank you.
When I showed you Defense Exhibit S and I asked you when you wrote this, you did not recall when you wrote it.
Objection.
Is that right?
Misstates the testimony.
I'm sorry, Mr. Smith?
Misstates the testimony. He said it was after he killed Robert Limon.
I'll rephrase.
Thank you, Mr. Cherry.
Do you remember the exact date and time when you took this, wrote this, and took this to Sabrina?
Not the exact date and time, sir.
So when you testified earlier with regards to Mr. Smith's question, you said this was after you talked to Sabrina and she had told you that she had not told the police about being involved with you. Is that right?
If I followed your question correctly, I gave a definitive answer. Yes, sir. That
Okay. So everything in this letter you wrote, you say is a lie. Is that right?
I didn't say that, sir.
Well, you said they weren't true when Mr. Smith was asking you questions about portions of it. Did you not?
What's your objection, Mr. Smith?
Misstates the testimony.
Sustain.
Okay. Well, Mr. Smith asked you is the following with regards to this following passage. Sabrina, I feel like Robert was a man that I wish to God I knew better. Was that something that you meant, or was that a lie?
That is something I meant. The venue of writing it in that letter makes it reasonably untrue, I guess it could be argued.
You then went on to say, every Facebook and obituary eulogy that I have read paints a clear picture of the precious man who opened my eyes to life and God. That was a lie by you?
Yes, sir.
Through a 15-minute phone call just over a year ago. That completes that sentence, doesn't it?
I don't recall. Thank you. Yes, sir, it appears it does.
Okay. And that's with regards to the 15-minute phone call you had with Robert in 2013. Is that right?
Yes, that is a reference to that phone call.
Let me ask you this. The phone call you had with Robert, how would you characterize that phone call as far as the tone?
As far as his tone?
Yes, sir.
Pretty short.
That was his tone was short.
Yes, sir.
He basically told you to stay the heck away from his wife. Is that right?
Among other things, yes, sir.
But that was primarily what his intent was in the call, at least as you understood it?
The call was initiated by me, but that was his primary thing he had to say, I guess you could say.
You go on in this letter to say, what a legacy and a lesson his life leaves to us. My heart is shattering for you and for the kids. Is that a lie also?
Yes, sir. Speaking to the setting of that letter, yes, sir.
You had indicated that you and Sabrina had an intent to, or discussed your life together, right?
We did?
And that also included how you were going to raise the children. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And during the course of the time that you spent with her, did you spend much time with her children?
Not until after the death of Rob.
Okay. And how much time did you actually spend with her children after the death of Rob?
As frequently as possible with my schedule.
Well, how much actual time did you spend with the children?
We went to the beach, we went to the fire station, we went on hikes, went to the park numerous times, went out to dinner many times, out to lunch a few times. This was only a 3-month period of time, but I was trying to certainly look after them to some extent.
Were you basically trying to step in to be the father figure?
No. No, sir.
Well, the time you took them to the beach, that was with Robbie and Leanna, is that right?
That was Robbie and Leanna, yes, sir.
And there was an incident where Robbie accidentally kicked sand in Leanna's face and she started crying, is that right?
I don't recall the details of that, sir.
Didn't you sit her down and tell her to stop crying like a baby?
No, sir.
You never said anything along those lines.
I remember some sort of outburst at the beach with Leanna, and as comfortingly as possible, I told her to. I shouldn't say told her to. I tried to mitigate the situation, and she redirected her frustrations, and I don't recall the exact situation, whether she was frustrated with her mom or with Robbie, I'm not sure, but she redirected some of those emotions at me and started screaming at me, and so I do recall that being a little, I mean, she's a child, is an ordinary outburst, I guess you could say. It was nothing. I was not assuming some fatherly role. As a matter of fact, we spoke about it later when sitting in the back of my pickup truck going shopping, waiting for Robbie and Sabrina to come out of the store, and just not that long thereafter, we're back to being best buddies. So.
And with regards to Robbie, I remember in one of the conversations you were having with Sabrina, you were talking about Robbie giving you a little bit of attitude. I believe that is how you referenced in that conversation. Remember that?
I remember saying that I had been encouraging of a little attitude, but not that he'd given me attitude. He never gave me attitude.
He never told you that to leave him alone, you weren't his dad?
No, sir.
You ever tried to discipline him as if you were his father?
Not once.
Any further questions at this time, Your Honor? Thank you.
Nothing.
Mr. Hearn, you just stepped down. Thank you, sir.
I'd ask the subject to read the call.
Granted. Before you call your next witness,
Oh, okay.
can you clear that off for me, please? Sir?
People call Sergeant. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I appreciate that. What do you got next?
People call Sergeant Rutledge.
Sergeant Rutledge. Could you come forward, raise your right hand and be sworn?
Do you solemnly state that the testimony you shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Come on up, have a seat, please.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Good afternoon, sir. Can you tell us your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes, sir. My name is Brandon Rutledge. Last is Rutledge.
Thank you. Your witness, counsel.
You previously testified that you were involved in the interviewing of Sabrina Limon November 18, 2014.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where did that interview take place at?
At the Boron substation.
Where is the Boron substation?
I don't recall the physical address, sir. It's in Boron, California, which is out past Mojave.
Would it be fair to say it's the first substation within Kern County if you were to come from San Bernardino?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And during the course of that interview, who else was present besides yourself and Miss Limon?
Then Detective Juan Trevino and then Sergeant Avery Simpson.
So, Your Honor, if I may approach, have an item marked.
Please.
People 78 and 78A, mark next in order.
So, Your Honor, I would request to play the initial portion of People's 78 for purposes of authentication of this witness.
Sir. Submission. Thank you, counsel. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
If I may approach your witness and provide a
Please.
transcript.
Thank you.
Sergeant Rutledge, I'm just going to play the initial 30 seconds for the purposes of authentication.
Yes, sir.
What's wrong?
You look so familiar to me. Have I met you?
That's your word right there.
Yeah.
Sergeant Rutledge, based on the initial approximately 30 seconds, do you recognize the audio?
Yes, I do.
Is that audio from your interview with Ms. Sabrina Limon, November 18, 2014?
Yes, sir, it is.
Your Honor, I would request People's 78 be moved into evidence at this time, be allowed to provide transcripts to the jury.
Any objection, Mr. Chair?
Submitted.
Counsel agree or stipulate Madam Reporter does not need to take down the contents of 78, let it be transcribed in the minute.
So stipulated.
So stipulate, Your Honor.
Thank you. Deputy Hearn is going to hand out a transcript. The actual evidence is what you hear, not what you read. The purpose of a transcript is to help as an aid in you following along.
apologize. I handed out the next transcript.
You need to get that one back, Mr. Smith?
Yes, it will be played eventually.
Okay, would you, we'll mix it up. Would you hand those back the other way? We want to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, November 18th.
Listos? Ready? Record reflected everybody does have a copy, Mr. Smith, whenever you're ready.
What's wrong?
That's your one right there. We're gonna keep this door open because the ventilation is so old building, and if we don't, it'll get rid of the stuff in here and. You ever picked up at your kid's school? No? Okay. I'm going to transport you here in one of our vehicles. You're in one of our buildings, okay? Sheriff's Department policy says that because of those reasons, we have to read you your rights, okay? All right, you are detained, but you're not under arrest. I want to make that perfectly clear to you, okay? Okay. You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand?
Yes.
Anything you say may be used against you in court. Do you understand?
Yes.
You have the right to the presence of an attorney before and during any question. Do you understand?
Yes.
If you can afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you, free of charge, before any questioning if you want. Do you understand?
Yes.
I think my sergeant wanted to have a quick word with you before we got started. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, I'll proceed.
Okay. Is this your station?
No, I'm not a Bakersfield.
Oh, okay, so you're with Detective Meyer and...
Yes.
That's Sabrina. I mentioned the other day in my office. I'm not going to be really well. This is your one opportunity. This is your one opportunity for your kids to tell the truth. Okay? These guys are going to be patient with you, but they're not going to put up with any more lies. Okay? You're going to start from the beginning, and you're going to tell them the complete truth. This is a capital murder case, which comes with the death penalty. Prove to us how important your kids are to you. Okay? All right.
Thank you. Okay. Do you understand what my boss said?
because they're so important to me and I feel it so much.
I talked to Detective Meyer a little bit, and he said Robbie's been sick or under the weather or something like that. Did he make it to school today?
Both the kids are in school today.
Robbie and Leanna
Yeah,
hanging in there.
they're actually doing good. As good as can be,
Considering,
Yeah,
and I'm sorry for what happened.
me too. Can't believe it.
From everything we know, it was a great guy. I know Detective Meyer has told you some things, that we've gotten some pretty good leads as of late. Okay. We keep hearing stuff about this guy named John. Remember what my soldier told you?
Yeah.
What do you know about
Well, there is a gentleman,
it? Okay.
and I had a relationship with him,
Okay.
and like an on and off thing. And so as far as that goes, and the Detective Myers sent me a video, and I don't recognize who's in this video. So where the John comes from, like John, so I honestly don't know. I don't know.
Well, let's talk more about Jonathan. What's his last name?
Hearn.
You said you've seen him off and on for how long?
Over a year.
Over a year. Okay. Did Rob ever know about this relationship?
He did. A little bit, and then that's when we called it off. It wasn't anything, I just had him talk to them.
Okay.
And then I looked at Costco.
So you're not talking to Jonathan anymore?
No, he's been around now since he found out that this had happened.
When did he find out?
He found out, I would say, so many people have been in and out. I would say maybe probably started coming around again after 2 weeks. After moving on.
When did you start? Let's go back to the very beginning. Okay. When did you start seeing Jonathan?
Oh gosh, I had just talked with him a lot on the phone, and I'd seen it work, and after work a little bit, nothing like crazy.
Okay.
Like a year, and then I started talking to him more.
Did you develop feelings for him?
And I talked to Robert and I, something Detective Meyer had, and my biggest thing was I didn't want this to come out because of our families, because of Robert's, our marriage, because we have a good marriage. But it was like an open, kind of relationships we experienced.
Okay.
And it's not anything that I'm proud of. It's, I feel all of it very heavy, that he's gone. And I'm just being honest with you guys, because I feel like that's why I'm here.
Okay.
But I know that there's no way that Jonathan's the one that murdered Robert. I mean, there's no way. Like, I know him very well, and I can't.
I'm kind of curious. How well? So you said you cut it off. Do you remember what time of year you guys cut it off? The relationship, talking to him.
He
this year?
Seriously don't remember.
You get my binder stuff.
I'm still out the dates. I really
That's
don't
okay.
have the dates.
Several months ago. Rob passed away, and obviously this year,
Yeah.
right? Several months before that, he passed off.
Well, I've still been talking to him. We cut it prior, and then I started talking to him again.
When did you start talking to Jonathan again?
I don't remember. I might have to. Again at work. In June?
Okay, so you saw him. You were at his work?
No, I would call
Okay, and you ran into him at work. Okay. So you're saying that your conversation with him was just casual. You'd see him out, and there's a call.
that. We talked on the phone.
How regular would you talk to him?
And I talked to him quite a bit.
Going how far back?
To like June.
Okay. So June, you started talking to him again. Would you see him ever?
I see him after the work.
How were you able to hide this from Rob?
Well, he worked a lot, and he was distracted by, other things, and it was like we've had other things prior years ago. And, I kind of let him know that I felt like, he was somewhere else, not,
You're talking about Rob.
mhm.
Emotionally, he was.
Emotionally somewhere else, but yet we were still, like, we were best friends, and we got along, we didn't fight, we really didn't fight. I liked everything to be,
This 760-475-7844, that's your number, correct?
Would you talk to him? Would you talk to Jonathan? I'm sorry, on that line. Okay.
Okay, because,
Going back to June, you said.
well,
And Sabrina,
I got my records right here. I said the last time you talked to him on this phone was March 8th at 2:13 in the afternoon. Call lasted 188 seconds. So if you're continuing to talk to him, how are you talking to him?
I talked to him, I have another phone.
Do you have another phone? What's that number?
I don't know the number. So, it's just like our phone that we used to talk.
would you talk to anybody else on it?
I don't know.
So that phone was exclusively for John.
When did you get that phone? And you don't know the number, really?
I promise you, I've never called.
If you don't mind, man, where's the phone now?
It's at home in my drawer.
Did Rob know you had the phone? Did you see what you just did there? Are you seeing where this is going?
Yeah,
I honestly.
Do you understand the gravity of it?
I think that you're hoping that we're kind of Mickey Mousing this around, kind of throwing you some information and hunting for something.
yeah. Now
We-
I don't
we're-
understand.
we're-
I don't.
Hold on, let me say something, okay?
Mhm.
We are not here to play games.
Yeah.
Your husband was killed,
I know that. I
cold
understand.
blooded,
I understand that.
okay? And you have been less than honest with us. And I have a hard time believing that you haven't cooperated with us to conceal an affair. Call me silly. I don't You know,
I-
you were asked if you had an extramarital affair. On 2 separate occasions, you said no. We asked you about John. Now you're telling us Jonathan Hearn. You know,
I want to be honest with you guys.
I want you to be honest.
Because here's the deal. I realize what happened to Robert, and I cannot believe that my husband was murdered. I cannot even wrap my mind around that. And I know that there's no way that it was tied into our personal life, my personal life.
Mhm.
Okay?
When you say your personal life with Jonathan,
our personal
your
life.
affair. Your affair has nothing to do with this.
Yes, that's how I felt. I felt like I couldn't believe it. I mean, I could not believe how random this was, you know? I still cannot believe that this has happened to Robert. I still cannot wrap my mind around the fact that Robert was murdered, and it has nothing to do with my personal life, our personal life, and our marriage. I didn't want to tell Detective Meyer that there's been other relationships and that
Did you think that Detective Meyer would find out?
I figured that this is the discussion I would have with him if he asked me about it, but I wasn't going to put forth information.
He did ask you about it. He came to our office last week.
Yeah, I said, unless, records or, specifics. Because this is a personal, private matter that has nothing to do with.
And you don't think an affair, as a cop looking into it,
As a cop
could
looking into
show
it.
motive?
Yes, I can see where a cop looking into it.
I look at it from our point of view. You concealed the relationship that you finally admitted to when presented with this. You've been lying to us since Rob passed away.
No, I feel.
And then we get a secret tip that this guy with John's involved. We present you with that information. And then we find out that you've been in a relationship with Jonathan Hearn since, what'd you say, about a year?
Yeah, but I know that Jonathan is not, I have talked with him about this, and
Okay. Well, what does he say?
he can't believe it either. He can't believe it either. And I just felt like, I know this is going to sound so horrible, like I felt like a purpose that I have to, the way Robert and I have been living, a little bit wild, felt like I have to be a mom now without Robert. And I have to get right.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think you do have to come up.
Yeah.
And
And I love my kids, and I love Robert so much. I mean, I understand even hearing myself say all of these things. I just don't have to, but it's kind of this. I mean, obviously, you guys already knew something. You brought me in here. So I might as well be honest with you about my personal life.
I think you should. I think you should start being a little more honest with us.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, and that's the truth right there. I mean, I can understand the detective's point. I get that. But there's no way. There's no way. I mean, I figured that this was tied in with the railroad.
How? I don't like dealing in absolutes.
What do you mean?
Like, you're sitting here trying to convince me that there's absolutely no way
Yeah,
Jonathan had anything to do with this.
yeah.
How do you know that?
I don't know.
How well do you know him?
I know him well. I feel like that's why I've been just sick. I feel like there's no way.
What's the status of your relationship with him right now?
He's come around.
Okay, what does that mean?
He's been around quite a bit.
Are you in a dating relationship with him right now?
Sunday. No, not dating.
Is he stronger than a friend?
He's,
Do you love him?
so guarded with us right now?
Because it's a personal thing. It's so, because I feel I have to live with this for the rest of my life, that I was in a relationship when Robert got murdered. That's why. And I cannot believe that Robert was murdered. And I have to live with that. I can't believe he's gone. I can't believe the father of my children is gone. I can't believe the man that so many people loved, and
Yeah, that's what we did. He was loved.
he was so.
And it's tragic, it is.
I can't believe that he's gone. It
You
doesn't-
touched on something there. Forgive me for interrupting, but the father of your children
Yeah,
is gone.
yeah.
Is gone. And you said something a little bit ago. You said it's now it's time for you to be a mother. I sort of pointed something out. That it's time for you to start thinking about it and do what's in your best interest. Okay? We're not telling you, look at all the pages in that line. Look at all those pages in there.
Yeah.
You think those are blank sheets of paper? They're not. Okay? We're not going to sit here and give you a piece of evidence and then you say, okay, yeah, I knew about that too, I was lying to you about this. Because that's what would end up happening. We would just be going through this over and over and over. Sabrina, let me speak, okay? No, we're not going to play any games, okay? This isn't good cop, bad cop. We're not gonna try and do a ruse on your end. There's nothing secret, okay? There's nothing. What we're offering you is an opportunity, okay? An opportunity for you to do the right thing for yourself and for your family, okay? Only one Sabrina has a future here. Do you understand that? Okay, so you need to choose right now. This is it. My sergeant said this is your one and only chance for you to come clean. These are the games. This isn't some secret squirrel interview tactic. This is an opportunity. And I'm sorry, Sabrina, you're not being honest with us. I know this. You're not being honest with us. Okay, about something, yes. Right, I'll give you that. We kind of knew what you were going to say there. Okay? We knew what you were going to say. Okay? We knew that when presented with who's John, you would say, oh, Jonathan Hearn. Okay? It's time for you to make a decision. What road you want to go down. Okay?
Yeah.
Don't say anything right now. Take a moment. Okay? Put your mouth. Put your hand. That's the type of decision. Now, if you want to put your faith 100% in Jonathan and take that some time to deal with him,
I just know that this is like God's plan. I know personally. I can't believe that Robert was murdered. I can't even believe that it happened to him. Felt like the man that he was and from that he was. And
I realize you're in disbelief. It's tragic. It's very sad for such a good person to die. God's plan,
I felt like it was God.
you're saying what God's plan for a life to die.
I felt like God had a plan, He had a purpose. I felt like through this pain, I felt just I'm down on my knees. And,
For you and Jonathan to be together.
you know, we felt like I don't to be together at all. It wasn't
for
meant for
God to die. Is that what you're saying?
not for Rob to die. We all die. So
This is
whatever
true.
plan God has for us, that's what I just felt like I've been now living through the time that I have to
Rob wanted to die? Do you think God planned to have Robbie and Leanne's dad die?
I feel like it was an act of evil.
I agree with you there, I really do. Do you think it was God's plan to have the guy that made his lunches in the morning, got him off to school, die?
No, I didn't mean it like that.
You keep saying it's God's plan. What?
I tried to figure that out. I have no idea how could he be gone. So I have to put my faith in God. That's where I've been.
So, well, I'm proud of you for that. Let's go back a little bit since you promised you're going to be honest with me. Okay? Let's go back to that day when Bob died. August day. You worked a day on that shift. What time did you do that? What time was it supposed to be on?
7 shift.
12-hour shift. Okay. So you didn't expect him home until like Did you know whether or not he worked alone? You knew he worked shift. Okay. What about Jonathan? Did you talk to Jonathan that day? All day long? What did you guys talk about?
Just how his day was at work and just kind of the same old stuff that we always talk about.
Was Jonathan working that day?
He had worked days before
Okay.
for 2 days.
He was ill.
The day Robert was killed, he was ill.
He was worn out from work.
And any time did you miss any of his calls or anything?
Who, Roberts?
Jonathan.
I don't remember. Missed his calls.
Let's go back.
Busy that day.
Did you text him at all that day?
Probably. I'm not sure. I'm sure.
Talk to him.
I talked to him.
Earlier, I know she was a trouble mom, but when we found out about Rob, how soon after that did you find out? Hours, days?
I was in shock. I can't feel anything.
How often did you talk to Rob? Every day, several times a day?
If you can do, not always.
And Rob is at work now?
Probably. Yeah, of course.
So if you didn't contact Jonathan for a few days, it would be kind of out of the ordinary for him. Did you try to get in touch with you at all?
Yeah, I believe so. That whole time. I think it's every. Well, no. So,
How did he take it?
he was shocked that he came around a couple weeks after. And
Would you keep in touch with him?
I have been in touch with him.
Those days after Rob died, would you keep in touch?
No, not.
So what does that mean?
No.
Yeah.
Not really, not much.
No, I did not. You know, like,
You know, you brought up an issue that I usually stay away from, and it's about God. If you found God, great. But you can't give off that image and sit here and lie to us, looking us right in the face. and lie. I mean, somewhere, since you brought up religion, somewhere I think thou shalt not lie. I've heard it somewhere before.
Yeah.
But you're looking at me and you're looking at my partner, and you're lying. You're lying. If you're saying that days went by where you didn't communicate with him, okay, I can prove without a doubt that you communicated with him. See, and you want to give us partial truths.
No, I didn't communicate. There were days I didn't communicate.
Really?
That's what I felt like.
Because I can tell you, if you want me to tell you, I can give you the amounts of text messages and phone calls that were made prior to, during, and after Robert was killed. I do this for a living. I'm not playing games with you.
I'm sorry. Say that again. Listen to him. Say that again.
Prior, during, and after. I can tell you how many times you talked to Jonathan.
How many voicemails you left him?
On your burner phone.
Isn't that what you call it?
So if you're going to keep giving me partial truths, that entryway for you, it's shutting pretty quick. Because I'm trying to catch a killer.
I want
Okay.
you guys to.
No, I don't think you do.
Yeah.
Because you are impeding this investigation. You want to take it one step further? The person that I'm going after is the guy that you're saying I love you to every day. So keep giving me partial truths.
You could not have done that to Robert. There's no.
Okay. When you let Jonathan, think hard, Sabrina, think hard. Think hard. Stay with me. How did Jonathan act when you told him Detective Meyer wanted you to go to headquarters for him? How did Jonathan?
Okay, say that.
How did Jonathan act when you told him Detective Meyer wanted you?
With me.
Yeah.
He just said,
Okay. This, oh God, please help us ring a bell?
yeah. No, just,
Oh God, please help us.
yeah.
What was he so worried about? Think, Sabrina, what was he so worried about?
He didn't want an affair anymore.
You're going to go to that extent to conceal an affair?
Well, I didn't want to come and tell you guys what was going on.
And I'm sorry.
I just,
Please.
because,
Hold on. I'm gonna. You lived a certain lifestyle with Robert. Okay. I would imagine that there's several people out there that know about that lifestyle. And Robert is murdered in cold blood by Jonathan. Okay.
Fair enough.
And now you are afraid, embarrassed, ashamed, or whatever lifestyle you lived prior to.
yeah.
When there was two consenting adults that made the choice. You can keep saying there's no way to try to convince yourself that the guy that you say I love you to every day didn't kill your husband in cold blood. You can do everything you can to convince yourself of that. That's your prerogative. Okay?
Can I say something? We know Jonathan Hearn killed Robert Limon. We know that. We have evidence that will prove Jonathan Hearn murdered Robert Limon.
Are you serious?
He is going to prison for the rest of his life. Okay? If I wasn't clear to you in the beginning, this is your one chance not to join him. Do you understand that? This is your one chance.
I understand that. I can't wrap my brain.
We don't believe you. We know everything. It is your turn to tell the truth. Okay? It's time to start from the beginning and tell the truth. We know everything. We're not going to play out this case in front of you. It's your turn to tell the truth.
All right, record reflected people 78 was placed for the jury.
Sergeant Rutledge, in that last portion of the transcript, it's stated as unknown. Who was the individual talking in that?
That was then Sergeant Avery Simpson.
And what was Sergeant Simpson's connection with the case?
He was the sergeant in charge of homicide at the time. He would he kind of oversaw the investigation as a whole.
Your Honor, if I may approach, have another CD marked.
Yes.
People 79 and 79A, mark next quarter.
Mr. Smith, perhaps we should take our, unless you want to play 2 minutes and take a break.
I can play a brief now. Okay.
Off you go.
If I may approach the witness.
Please.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I would request to play the first 30 seconds of People 79 for purposes of authentication.
Any objection, Mr. Terry?
Submitted.
Granted. Proceed, Mr. Smith.
It's 11/20/2014, about 10:36 hours on Sierra regarding Sabrina Limon, regarding SR 14-21701.
November 20th, 10:37, at Sierra, for Sabrina Limon. What's that? How about she sits right here? So I'll stay right here.
Sergeant Rutledge, as to the audio just played, do you recall that interview?
Yes, I do.
Okay. When did the interview take place?
On November 20th of 2014.
Where did the interview take place at?
Inside an interview room at the Central Receiving Facility.
Why did you go to a Central Receiving Facility to contact Ms. Limon on November 20th, 2014?
To conduct a follow-up interview with her.
Okay. Who was present for that interview?
Just Detective Trevino and I.
Now, this interview, was it solely audio recorded, or did that room you're in also have video?
Solo audio recorded.
Okay. Now, same thing with the People 78 that was played. Were you in a room that had video capabilities?
No, sir, I was not.
Okay. Your Honor, I would request People's 79 be moved into evidence at this time.
Any objection, Mr. Terry?
Submitted.
Mr. Smith, can we play that after the break?
Your Honor, I actually have no further of this witness. I will ask to play this after other interviews.
After what now?
Other interviews.
Well, I apologize. All right. We'll take a recess anyway. Everybody back at 3:15. If you want to perform or express any opinion or discuss the case, we'll see you back in 15 minutes. versus Limon. She's present in court with her attorney, Mr. Terry. People are represented by Mr. Smith. We do have Sergeant Rutledge still on the stand, subject in a moment to cross by Mr. Terry. And all 12 plus 4 in the box. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Smith, I believe you've finished your questioning for now with Sergeant Rutledge, correct?
I have, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Terry, please.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, Sergeant Rutledge.
Good afternoon.
Now, Sergeant Rutledge, at the outset of the interview you conducted with Sabrina Limon in Boron, you told her that this was a capital murder case. Is that right?
I did not say that, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that one of the other officers in the room with you?
I believe that was Avery Simpson that said that.
So Sergeant Simpson was in the room with you the entire time that you were interviewing Ms. Limon?
I know he was at the very beginning. I believe he was in and out of the room throughout the duration.
How many officers were in there with you when you were interviewing Ms. Limon, other than yourself?
Detective Trevino, and as I said, sporadically, Sergeant Simpson.
Now, he told her, as we can see from the transcript, in fact, that this was a case that involved the death penalty. Is that right?
Yes.
And he told her it was time to prove how important her kids are to her. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
And again, beginning at page 17, when Sabrina was talking about Robert being gone, you said it was time for her to, repeating her, it's now time for her to be a mother, right? Is that right?
Your Honor, may I refer to the transcript?
I'm sorry, beginning line 16, page 17, line 16.
Thank you, Mr. Terry.
Yes.
You said it's time for me to be a mother now. You were referring to a statement she'd made. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And then you said, okay, it's time to start thinking about them and to do what's in their best interest. Is that right?
Yes.
At page 18, line 17, you make the following statement. Only one Sabrina has a future here.
Yes, I did.
Which Sabrina was that?
It was in reference to whether or not she was going to be honest with us.
Well, if she was honest with you, were you still going to arrest her?
At the moment of that statement, I do not know.
Well, you'd already taken her and brought her in cuffs from her home. Well, I could rephrase that. You'd actually had her brought from her child's school in handcuffs to the Boron station. Is that right?
She was transported there, yes.
In handcuffs.
Yes.
I think we could hear the handcuffs coming off at the beginning of the interview on the recording.
I believe I may have taken them off.
Okay. And then at page 19, lines 15, 17, and 19, those are statements by you. Is that correct?
Yes, they are.
And it says, picture Robbie, okay? Is that what you said to her?
Yes.
And that was in reference to her son.
Yes.
And then you said, picture Leanna. And again, that was in reference to her daughter.
Yes.
And then you said to her, picture them alone without a mother and a father. Is that right?
Yes.
just get a rubber hose out and beat her, sir.
Assist.
Would you agree that attacking a woman, a mother of two, with no prior history of dealing with law enforcement, by using her children as leverage to get her to talk to you, that would be coercive, sir?
Objection, argumentative as to attack.
As to what?
Attack.
Overruled, you can answer.
Sir, can you restate that, please?
Sure. Don't you think that using her children, mother of two children, young children, who's never been dealing with the law until this time frame in her entire life, that would tend to be coercive?
I did not feel at the time I was being coercive.
But you were hoping that that would get Sabrina to tell you things that you wanted to hear. Is that right?
We were attempting to motivate her to tell the truth.
By using her children as a means to leverage her to talk to you. Would that be accurate, sir?
I would not call it leverage, no.
No further questions.
Smith?
Sergeant Rutledge, when you were interviewing Ms. Limon, how much information did you have about her cell phone activity, the wiretaps, etc.?
I had a large amount of information.
So as you were listening to this interview with Ms. Limon, up until the point we talked about, just in general, how many lies were you able to identify that Ms. Limon told you at the outset of this interview?
I'm unable to give an exact answer, but several lies.
Okay. So when you were trying to get her to, motivate her to tell the truth, you were aware that she was lying to you in this interview?
Yes.
Okay. Were you aware that she had lied to Detective Meyer the week prior in an interview at Norris Road?
Yes.
Were you aware that she had lied to Detective Meyer immediately following the investigation as well?
Yes.
Okay. Nothing further on.
Terry?
During the course of this interview, based on what we've heard, she informed you that she was trying to protect her husband's reputation by not talking about their lifestyle, right?
Yes, something like that, yes.
And she didn't believe, when she didn't tell you or Detective Meyer about the affair, she didn't believe it had anything to do with Robert's death. Right?
That's what she told me.
And this is an interview you conducted in on November 18th of 2014, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Detective, you can step down for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Subject to recall. Mr. Smith?
People recall Detective Meyer?
Come on back up, Detective Meyer. You're still under oath. Mr. Smith?
Detective Meyer, did you also conduct an interview with Ms. Limon following what has just been played in court involving Sergeant Rutledge?
Yes, sir, I did.
Where did that interview take place at?
That interview took place at our sheriff's headquarters on North Road in one of our interview rooms.
Prior to that interview with Ms. Limon, had you made contact with her here in Bakersfield?
I did. Before we had the interview, I met with her at the jail in the basement before she was transported inside to be booked, and she wished to speak to me, so I had her transported back to headquarters.
Okay. Your Honor, if I could approach, have an item marked.
Please.
Honor.
So, Your Honor, if I may approach the witness to provide a transcript.
Yes.
Also, Your Honor, if I could play the initial portion of People's 80 for purposes of authentication.
Yes. Strike that. Mr. Terry, any objection?
Submitted, Your
Thank
Honor.
you, Counselor. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Detective Myers showing you now what's up on the screen. People's 80. Do you recognize the date and time of this interview?
Can't quite see the date or the time in the lower corner there.
Do you recall this being the interview you had with Miss Limon following the interview we've just heard that Miss Limon had with Sergeant Rutledge?
Yes, sir.
This is case number SR 14-21-701. I'm at headquarters with Sabrina Limon regarding this case. So I need to go over a couple things with you real quick, okay?
Do you recognize this video, this audio?
Yes, sir, I do.
Your Honor, I would request People's 80 be moved into evidence at this time. Be allowed to provide a transcript.
Any objection, Mr. Terry?
No.
It'll be admitted. Deputy Barron will attempt to hand out the next transcript. This transcript has audio and video, so the evidence is both what you see and hear. Nonetheless, a transcript will be provided for you. I'd like the record to reflect that the jury has brought down and
out of the house, and you were going to school, and
handing out the transcript.
Did we redact out those social? Yes. Okay. That's in the next one. Okay. Okay. That's what I'm sure. Thank you. And if not, I'll jump up.
Record reflected all the jurors have a copy of the transcript. Mr. Smith, whenever you're ready.
One says, Let me get this one real quick. Detective ID number 410301. This is case number SR 14-21701. I'm at headquarters with Sabrina Limon regarding this case. So I need to go over a couple things with you real quick, okay? So earlier, you were out at your house and you were going to school and you were detained by some deputies, correct? Okay. Once those deputies basically read your rights, your Miranda warning, you decided you wanted to talk to an attorney.
Your Honor,
Yes.
we need to sign an order.
1 second. to call it a day today? Okay. We're still on schedule, everything's fine.